I'm Rachel Edidin.
And I'm Miles Stokes.
And we are the hosts of Rachel and Miles Explain the X-Men, a weekly podcast where we walk listeners through the ins, the outs, and the retcons of our favorite superhero soap opera.
And also of Rachel and Miles Review the X-Men.
Which you're watching right now.
Where we talk about the X-books that come out every week, this time the week of January 14th, 2015.
Okay, Miles, what have we got first?
First up, we have Wolverines #2, written this time by Ray Fox, with art by Alison Borges, and colors by Israel Silva and Brett Smith. This is, so it's the second issue in the weekly Wolverines book. And once again, I'm finding myself much more impressed than I was expecting to be. I was preparing to hate this book, a weekly obligation to review. But what we're ending up with is a superpowered, mutant, twisty-turny heist with a bunch of anti-heroes all teamed up. And I actually feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, and I think you nailed it when you called it a heist book, because that's what this has turned into. Specifically, it's turned into a heist with Mr. Sinister as the target.
Right.
And there's literally nothing bad about that premise.
Yeah, I think if I had known Mr. Sinister was going to be part of it from the start, and I'm sure if I'd read Solicits I would have been way more on board. But yeah, so once again we have the Weapon X Project escapees from Paradise, and we have various, Wolverine-y type related characters like Sabretooth and Mystique, all having to infiltrate this base for Wolverine's corpse, which Sinister has now stolen. And really, once again, it's just all about the characters bouncing off of each other. It's all about, ultra-violent, high action and high drama and high stakes, and it's just fun. It just turns everything up to 11. There's one line that I'm actually going to read. Mystique's talking about Mr. Sinister's security. I've heard of people trying to mess with him who end up dying 10 years previous from a cancer inserted into their own past bodies. Yes, this is the type of X-Men stuff I want in my Wolverines book. So, it's very rushed. Obviously, it's a different writer and a different artist this time, but it's a lot of fun, and I like comics that are fun, so no complaints.
Yeah, Fox is doing Sinister right, which is a hard and rare thing. And this is a character with a lot of iterations and a lot of history. And we've seen, other really fantastic versions like Glam Demigod Sinister, which is sort of what I think of as the Gillen version. This is Mad Scientist Sinister. And yeah, this is lovely. I'm also really hoping that this means that X-23 is going to be more front and center in the series, because of the characters in there, she's the one who does have a lot of history with that villain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so good stuff. I'd say check it out.
Next up, we've got X-Force #14, written by Simon Spurrier, drawn by Roque Kim, with colors by Jose Villarrubia. Oh, man.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Rachel, I'm kind of in love with this book.
That's entirely reasonable. I am, too. And, this is a book that got off to a rocky start.
And actually, in an interview I just read with Cy Spurrier, he mentioned that he kind of wishes he hadn't done the "we have no idea what's going on, jump straight into it" thing at the beginning. That it might work for the trade, but he said it didn't work as well for the single issues. I totally agree.
I was actually about to say that. This is a story whose ending very much validates its beginning in ways that the beginning didn't on its own. This is, I think, the second to last issue of Spurrier's run of this series, which on one hand I'm sad about. On the other hand, it's a really good complete story, or it's going to have been a really good complete story. And I feel like, yeah, I would rather see this one, and not even burn out so much as explode spectacularly than fade away.
And talking about exploding spectacularly, and like we said before, turning things up to 11, this book knows how to do a climax. There were more "are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?" moments in this issue than any I've read in ages.
Well, and again, it also does a very good job of bringing the series full circle. If you've been reading from the start, you know that it opened with Marrow, and a version of Marrow who was very, very different from traditional portrayals of the character. And her arc has sort of been going on in the background of the series, and really kind of hits its climax in #14 in ways that I thought were tremendously satisfying and very, very organic and well realized.
Yeah, I guess with the series ending so soon, it's going to be out in trade, and if you haven't been following, I'm guessing it's going to be 3 or so trades. They are very much worth your time. If you like weird and you like interesting and you like very deliberate writing, this book is going to be right up your alley.
It's very wordy and
very violent.
It's very, very, very violent. I'm going to go ahead and say actually cartoonishly violent. The violence in here is not realistic. Spoiler, toward the end of the series that's been going on since the beginning, Cable is a series of clones, each of which has a built-in expiration period. And so Cable dies pretty much every issue.
Yeah, the characters
sometimes
take turns
multiple times. Yeah, they've got a cycle they get to take turns, because he's also kind of a jerk boss. But it's a tremendously fun book. It's a tremendously interesting book. And it's a narratively daring book in ways that I think you don't see a lot in shared universe superhero comics. I will be sad to see this one end, but excited to see it end well.
Next up, we have Amazing X-Men number 15. This one's written by Christopher Yost with art by Jorge Fornes and colors by Rochelle Rosenberg. Now, normally, Yost writes with his writing partner, Craig Kyle. In this case, he's writing alone, and I think it's actually stronger than anything they've done together in a while.
Yeah, I think, honestly, this might be the strongest issue of this series so far. Maybe after the Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends one.
I did really like the one with Anil on the date.
That was also delightful, but I think this is actually better.
It's possible. So this is the first part of the new arc, The Once and Future Juggernaut, and as you might imagine, if you've been paying attention to continuity for a while, with a title like that, it's talking about both the Crimson Gem of Cyttorak, which is what makes the Juggernaut, and Colossus. Colossus has been through some really rough stuff over the last number of years, between working with Cable's outlaw team of X-Men, getting possessed by the Phoenix Force, getting, turned into the Juggernaut for a while, betrayed by his little sister. And it's really nice to see the X-Line actually focus on that, with Colossus in the spotlight. He's sort of been background for a while. And, Rachel, you were talking about some of the character interactions with him that really jumped out at you.
Yeah, now, as Miles mentioned, this is kind of the standalone team book in the X lineup right now. It's a book you can follow if you're not following current major continuity, if you're not following crossovers, and if you're not following the central titles. And you'll just have teams of X-Men going out on cool adventures and doing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other hand, if you read it and you know a fair lot of X-Men continuity, there will be Easter eggs in there for you, and there will be things that are subtle that you'll pick up on that you might not otherwise. One of the things in this issue that really grabbed me is that in the Bronze Age especially, and when their team was first together, Storm and Colossus were really tight, and she called him little brother a lot.
Mm-hmm.
She has not done that in years that I've seen, and she did in this issue, basically while telling him that he has absolutely burned through any trust on the team that he could have, and that he can't come along with the Juggernaut quest, and that he's basically only there because she promised Wolverine she wouldn't kick him out.
Yeah, it is rough. And I mean, again, this is stuff that's all a long time coming. It's not all dour, darkety continuity stuff, though. I mean, one of the other things I really like about this book is the very unlikely team and the way they bounce off of each other. Like, Rockslide, who's one of the younger students who has just sort of graduated into becoming a semi-X-Man, is part of it. And he is endlessly hilarious, especially when dealing with X-Men that are even remotely responsible. We see Nightcrawler written phenomenally well and interacting with his teammates in a way that made me feel really nostalgic. It's it's just a lot of fun. This book, like I said, is the beginning of a new arc. So if you're curious, this would be a great time to pick it up.
Absolutely. Next up, we have Cyclops number 9. This is written by John Layman, drawn by Javier Garron, and colored by Chris Sotomayor. And man, I really want to like this book. I have a lot invested in liking this book, and I really don't like this book.
I mean, to be fair, it is following up on a phenomenal run by Greg Rucka. It's a tough act to follow, but, even so, it's not what I was hoping it would be.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if this were the first arc, even if it were not following, the Rucka Dodderman stuff, I would still be disappointed. The thing is, it's not a bad comic. It's a fun space adventure, but Layman doesn't really seem to be able to bridge writing a story in which there is a character who is named Scott Summers, who is Cyclops, and writing a Cyclops story that justifies the existence of a solo book.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really frustrating for me. This feels pointless.
That said, I mean, if you ignore that it's not, again, what it could be given the central character, it is, especially with this issue, developing into, I think, a really fun space opera book. I mean, various double crosses and freebooting space pirates and father-son bonding in the face of fake torture and insect aliens and stuff. Like, it's enjoyable and it's fun, but I think you could do it with other characters and really not lose very much. So, again...
And for me, that defeats the purpose of a solo book. And, that's the thing. There are a lot of good elements. Garron is a really fun artist. I really like his art. I think, actually, you know what I want? I want him to be drawing Amazing X-Men right now.
Ooh, yeah, that would be good.
Because I'm not a huge fan of the person on that, and I think the feel of his art fits that book much better than this one. Sotomayor's colors are, of course, beautiful and wonderful and phenomenal, and it's probably worth buying the book just for them. But, the storytelling, even, I'm not super fond of. It's so decompressed in this issue. It's not that way everywhere, but this one just dragged, and I want this book to be good. I want the new creative team to be good, but 3 issues in, it is just still falling pretty flat.
Finally is Nightcrawler number 10, written by the one and only Chris Claremont with art by Ted Nock and colors by, once again, Rochelle Rosenberg. And this issue was actually kind of a pleasant surprise, I have to say. So, if you've been following our video reviews, you know that overall Nightcrawler has left us a little lukewarm. Like, it's alright, but it's not what we were hoping it would be, both in terms of the creative team and in terms of the character. And this issue captures, I think, a lot of what I was hoping it would be. It's got this sort of swashbuckly feel to it. You know, everything's kind of a little bit cartoonish, but also really fun with this sort of sense of joy and hope to it. And, you know, that's something that I think Nightcrawler works well with, and I think it's something that Claremont can do well in his modern era sometimes. So, it's still the same Shadow King plot we've been seeing before, which is, you know, it's alright, I guess. It's just sort of the villain du jour. But this one is just more fun, I think.
This is one of several X books that's ending soon. I think this is the second to last issue.
Something along those lines, yeah.
X-Force. And I'm a little disappointed it's not the last issue. Not because I want it to end, but because there's a scene in here that would make just beautiful punctuation to the series, and really does. There are, you know, I feel like, again, Claremont's been hit and miss on this book, but in this issue, he sort of comes back and goes, hey guys, remember how I can just grab your heartstrings and tug?
Yeah, especially for the long-time reader.
It's really nice.
Yeah, there's some stuff involving the afterlife, because, you know, that's been a thing with Nightcrawler recently. He literally came back from the dead not too long ago.
As one does.
As one does, especially in X-Men.
It's Thursday.
So it's nice to see a plot point that is both poignant and effective and also thematically relevant in a way that actually works incredibly well. I mean, I wasn't expecting to almost tear up while reading an issue of this run of Nightcrawler, but I totally did this time.
So that wraps up the reviews. Miles, what's our issue of the week?
I think our issue of the week has to be the new Amazing X-Men. I mean, this one for me kind of had it all. It was fun, but it also had good character drama, a little bit of that soap opera stuff, some references to continuity where you didn't need to know the past to still mostly appreciate them, great character interactions, a fun concept. Like, I really have no complaints. Like, when I'm reading an X-Men book, this is the sort of thing I want to read.
And it has the amazing feature of being a relatively standalone book in a very crossover heavy lineup.
Yeah. So, yeah, again, if you're looking to pick up a book like this is the time. It's the beginning of a new arc. I definitely recommend this one.
I'm not a huge fan of the art, but it's not a deal breaker. I mean, it's a great title, and you should be reading it.
Yeah. So, that said, how about our panel of the week, Rachel?
Okay, our panel of the week is from X-Force number 14. And I'm going to put it up on the screen. I mentioned when we reviewed this that Marrow has been sort of the frame of this arc of X-Force, and I like this panel because it's a really, really triumphant and almost joyful climax. I realize that sounds really strange since she's literally shredding a human being, but she's doing it, you know, in such a light and clean and effervescent layout.
And by the way, it's not as much of a spoiler as it looks like. We wouldn't do that to you.
No, I mean, it's X-Force. This happens to, like, every member of the team every week.
But yeah, I mean, it manages to be horrifyingly violent and ugly, and yet be very joyful in context and very deliberately drawn and drafted. And I really dig that.
Yeah, it's easy to make brutality or gore look boring or look exciting. It's very hard to make it look graceful. And I think Kim has accomplished that really beautifully here.
So there you go. We are all set. Thanks for watching.
If you like what you've seen here, please check out our podcast, Rachel and Miles Explain the X-Men. New episodes go up every Sunday at rachelandmiles.com, as well as on iTunes and Stitcher. What have we got for them this week, Miles?
So this week I'm really excited. We're going to be talking to current X-Men writer G. Willow Wilson, who you also may know from Ms. Marvel. She is a phenomenal writer and a phenomenal human being. I think it's going to be great.
These videos, and really everything at Rachel and Miles Explain the X-Men, is entirely listener-supported. What you're seeing right now comes to you thanks to the support of our awesome Patreon subscribers. If you want to join their ranks, you can do that at the link below. We're currently working toward a milestone goal that, if we hit it, is going to force me to spend a year recapping and reviewing every single episode of teen drama X-Men Evolution.
Yeah, that's going to be our lives right there for quite a long time. So yeah, thanks again for watching. We will see you next time, my mutant friends.
You should sing Dancing Queen again. No, once was enough.